Hi everyone, today I'm going to talk to you about Azure Active Directory device identity. We'll go through an overview of the different join types available in Azure Active Directory. I've been getting a lot of questions about different device identities and their join types in current client projects, so I wanted to give you guys an overview of these different join types and step through some of their key capabilities and some typical use scenarios. So what is device identity? Device identity is the foundation for device-based conditional access, and managing device identity allows IT teams to utilize tools like Microsoft Intune to ensure security and compliance are met. It also enables single sign-on to devices, apps, and services from anywhere through these devices. And now taking a look at how do we actually get devices into Azure AD and what are the available join types to join devices to Azure AD. So we have three different join types. We have Azure AD registered, we have Azure AD joined, and we have hybrid Azure AD joined devices. Azure AD registered devices are typically personally owned or mobile devices, and they're signed in with a personal Microsoft account or another local account. Azure AD joined devices are usually corporate owned, signed in with an Azure AD account in the organization, and these are cloud-only devices. Hybrid Azure AD joined devices are corporate owned, signed in with an on-premises Active Directory account, and these exist both in Azure AD and in your on-premises Active Directory. Now let's take a look at an example device from the Azure Active Directory portal. For this example device, if we take a look at the join type, we can see that this device is Azure AD joined, and we can also see that for MDM, it is managed by Microsoft Intune. Now we'll step through a comparison at a high level, talk about the different device ownership, authentication, and some of the key capabilities of different join types. Next, we'll take a look at the device ownership and primary audience for the different join types. Starting with Azure Active Directory registered devices, these devices are registered to Azure Active Directory and do not require an organizational account to sign into the device. These devices are typically BYOD or mobile devices, and the device can be owned by the user or the organization. For supported operating systems, Azure AD registered devices support Windows 10, iOS, Android, and macOS devices. Taking a look at the Azure AD joined device scenario, we can see that these devices are joined only to Azure AD. They do require an organizational account to sign into the device. This scenario is suitable for both cloud-only and hybrid organizations. The device is typically owned by the organization, and all Windows 10 versions except for Windows 10 Home are supported in this scenario. Moving on to the hybrid Azure AD join, these devices are joined to on-premises AD and Azure Active Directory, requiring that an organizational account is used to sign into the device. These are suitable for hybrid organizations with existing on-premises AD infrastructure. The devices are typically owned by the organization, and Windows 10, 8.1, Windows 7, and Windows Server 2008 R2, 2012 R2, 2016, and 2019 are supported in this scenario. Next, we'll take a look at provisioning and sign-in for the different join types, starting with Azure Active Directory registered devices. For Windows 10, these devices are provisioned using the Settings application in Windows 10. For iOS and Android, these are provisioned using the company portal or the Microsoft Authenticator app. For macOS, these devices are provisioned using the company portal. Looking again at device sign-in, these Azure AD registered devices are using end-user local credentials to sign into the device. For device management, Azure AD registered devices can be managed using mobile device management and mobile application management. So looking at Azure AD joined devices, these are provisioned using self-service options such as Windows out-of-box experience or the settings application. They can also be provisioned using bulk enrollment or Windows Autopilot. Looking at the device sign-in, these devices are accessed using organizational accounts. And for device management, they can be managed by mobile device management or co-managed with Intune and Configuration Manager. Looking at hybrid Azure AD joined devices, these are either domain joined by IT or can be auto-joined via AD Connect or ADFS. They can also be domain joined by Windows Autopilot or auto-joined via Azure AD Connect or ADFS config. Previous versions prior to Windows 10 and Server 2016 do require an MSI to provision the devices. These devices again are signed in with organizational accounts and they can be managed by group policy, Configuration Manager standalone, or co-managed with Microsoft Intune. Next, we'll take a look at the key capabilities for the different join types. Starting again with Azure AD registered devices, this scenario supports SSO to cloud resources. conditional access when enrolled in Intune, conditional access via app protection policies, and enables phone sign-in with Microsoft authentication. Looking at Azure AD joined devices, this scenario supports single sign-on to both cloud and on-premises resources, conditional access through MDM enrollment and MDM compliance evaluation, self-service password reset and Windows Hello PIN reset on lock screen, and also enterprise state roaming. Looking at hybrid Azure AD joined devices, these capabilities are the same for Azure AD joined devices. In both scenarios, you have SSO to both cloud and on-premises resources, conditional access through MDM enrollment and MDM compliance evaluation, self-service password reset, and Windows Hello PIN reset on lock screen, and also enterprise state roaming. Next, we'll step through some typical scenarios for the different join types, and this may help give you a better idea of which join type may be suitable for your specific use case. So looking at Azure AD registered devices, these devices are typically used to access corporate resources from personally owned mobile devices or home PCs. Looking at Azure AD joined devices, these devices are used if you may be transitioning to a cloud-based infrastructure, you want to provide joining capabilities to workers in remote branch offices with limited on-premises infrastructure, or your users primarily need to access M365 or other SaaS apps that are integrated with Azure AD. Looking at hybrid Azure AD joined devices, this scenario is useful if you have Win32 apps that are deployed to these devices that rely on Active Directory machine authentication, you want to use group policy to manage device configuration, or you want to continue to use your existing imaging solutions to deploy and configure devices. These are also used if you must support down-level Windows 7 and 8.1 devices in addition to Windows 10. Thank you for taking the time today to watch my video. Hopefully this overview of the different join types in Azure Active Directory was valuable to you. If you need any assistance on getting started with Azure Active Directory in your environment, feel free to reach out. And if you found this video helpful today, please subscribe to my channel for future videos. Thank you.